welcome back to Nails Before Films. It's your favorite disgrace to society, and today I'll be reviewing The Substance, a body horror movie starring Demi Moore. I heard many good things about this film, but didn't watch it last year because I just wasn't interested. It seemed like one of those movies that criticized society's unfair beauty standards and ageism toward women, a topic that has been done countless times. However, I was blown away after watching it. Sure, it does discuss beauty standards and ageism, but most importantly, it's a film about how we see ourselves. At its core, The Substance explores a person's self-hatred. To me, that's what really makes The Substance terrifying, and I absolutely love the emphasis on "you are one." The body horror is just a cherry on top for horror fans like me. To be fair, The Substance is not a movie that makes sense if you think about it. It's unlikely that such a powerful drug can be ordered by phone and injected into yourself without any supervision. What if someone tries to replicate it or do something bad with it? It makes more sense if it's done by a doctor at a secure location. Another example would be how Sue managed to create a seamless, secret room to hide Elizabeth by herself in such a short time. Personally, I think The Substance is one of those absurd fever dream-like movies. While I noticed these issues, they didn't affect my viewing experience. In this case, the concepts and the presentation are more important than whether or not everything makes sense. However, if you care greatly about movie logic, then you'll probably have a hard time finding The Substance believable. Of course, there's also the extremely surreal third act. Sue brutally kills Elizabeth in a fit of rage after realizing she intended to terminate her. But without Elizabeth, Sue's body starts falling apart. Desperate to host the New Year's Eve show, she injects the single-use activator that created her, hoping to create a better version of herself. The result is a horrifying monster. The next part is really bizarre. So the monster makes her way to the show and is somehow allowed on stage. The audience is confused at first and then freaks out. She starts spraying blood everywhere while heavy metal music plays. Somehow, Monstro escapes from the studio, but her body collapses soon after. Elizabeth's face detaches from the body and crawls to her spot on the Hollywood Walk of Fame before melting into a puddle of blood. I don't believe the part at the studio is real. It's impossible that Monstro Alyssa Sue could get on stage without anyone stopping her. And the dancers had their tits out on a televised show with children in the live audience. I feel like that part is probably imaginary. Like, what would happen if she somehow made it? In reality, she probably collapsed before getting to the studio, and Elizabeth died after crawling to her spot. I'll admit, I was pretty confused by the New Year's Eve show and thought it was the weakest part of the movie. It felt unnecessary and mostly existed to show off the gore and special effects. But after giving it more thought, I do believe it served some purpose, whether real or not. Although it was Sue's decision that created Monstro, the audience and entertainment industry also played a huge part. Having the abomination show up in front of the audience is like saying, "Look at this monster you've created," and they are appalled by it. This gives us, the audience, something to think about. Both Sue and Monstro are created by the desire for admiration, yet one is beautiful and the other is hideous. It's a commentary on how the entertainment industry creates both beauties and monsters. Most importantly, Elizabeth, Sue, and Alyssa Sue are all the same. It's a reminder that something beautiful can also be extremely hideous, and Hollywood is a prime example of that. The Substance has so many layers to it, I can extract so much just from that confusing ending, and I'm sure there are more ways to interpret it. Of course, there are also the obvious criticisms of ageism and beauty standards, especially toward women in Hollywood. Another thing that The Substance does well is how it cleverly shows the worst side of two different generations. Sue is young, irresponsible, arrogant, self-centered, and ungrateful. On the other hand, Elizabeth is old, cynical, withdrawn, and miserable. Their conflict is a reminder for all audiences how not to act. For the younger generation, it's important to remember the world does not center around you. You should be grateful and respectful. Seriously, stop being a nuisance to everyone around you. I'm talking to you, TikTok pranksters. As for old folks, keep an open mind. Go out more, try new things. You'll realize life can still be good even at an old age. And just because you're old doesn't mean you're entitled to be an asshole. You should still treat others with respect, even if they're younger than you. My favorite thing about The Substance is definitely how it's relatable on an individual level. To me, the most important line from the movie is, "Remember, you are one." It's remarkable how I can see Elizabeth and Sue as one person, but at the same time understand that they see each other as another individual. I love how the Substance guy keeps reminding them you are one and blatantly tells Elizabeth to respect the balance when she complains about Sue. Elizabeth and Sue are one person, and Sue delays the switch because Elizabeth doesn't want to go back to her own body, even when she knows the risk. She wants to be Sue forever and pretend her less ideal self doesn't exist. It's intriguing how Elizabeth never disrespects the balance. She always changes back to Sue on time. I thought she would delay the switch to take back what Sue took from her, but she never did. In her mind, Sue's life is the only one worth living. She wouldn't dare damage Sue's body or take time away from her. All decisions are made by one person, just in different bodies. It's so interesting to see Elizabeth blame everything on Sue when she's the one who made the decisions, and it's a cautionary tale of holding ourselves accountable. At the end of the day, we are responsible for our actions and the consequences. Don't be like Sue and pretend our bad decisions don't have consequences until it's too late. Whether it's bad habits or any kind of addiction, we might feel great when self-destructing, but if we don't change, they will catch up to us one day, like how Sue eventually runs out of stabilizer and Elizabeth becomes old and deformed. Besides its message regarding accountability, The Substance, at its core, is a film about the danger of self-hatred. Elizabeth hates herself and can't accept that she's no longer admired. That's why when she's Sue, she hides her old body and says she's not a fan of Elizabeth on the talk show. Elizabeth hates how old she has become and does everything in her power to pretend that she doesn't exist anymore when she's Sue. And this is terrifyingly relatable. We all like to pretend everything's fine and there's nothing wrong with us, locking our problems away like Sue hides Elizabeth. But just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's gone. When we finally have to face it, like how Sue has to switch eventually, the damage is often irreversible, just like Elizabeth's body. As we see in the movie, hating ourselves isn't the solution, and it even worsens what we already don't like about ourselves. However, The Substance message isn't "you're perfect the way you are" or "you don't need to change." Its message is respect the balance and you are one. Elizabeth represents what we don't like about ourselves, and Sue is our ideal selves. These two must coexist peacefully. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be better, but that doesn't mean we should hate who we are right now. If Elizabeth could be like, "Hey, I'll live both lives to the fullest. Sue can have the glamorous Hollywood life and I can try new things and be happy as Elizabeth too," then everything would be fine. The thing is, she had the chance to do that. If she had gone out with Fred, maybe she wouldn't feel so miserable anymore. But she didn't, because she hated how imperfect she was compared to Sue. Because Elizabeth can't let go of her stardom and can't accept her imperfections, she eventually destroys herself. She believes Sue is the only lovable part of her, not just to other people, but most importantly to herself. I find the scene of Sue brutally killing Elizabeth to be utterly horrifying and disturbing, but not because of the gore. I was shaking when I watched that scene because the blatant self-hatred terrified me. This is what we do to ourselves when we're dissatisfied with who we are. We beat ourselves up and be like, "Why are you so disgusting? Why can't you do better? Why are you such a terrible person?" Seeing that in the form of Elizabeth killing herself as Sue was so horrifying, and is a brutal reminder of what happens when we hate ourselves. It's great to want to improve, but that's not the same thing as hating who we are now. We can love and accept who we are now while wanting to be better. In fact, the substance demonstrates that if we don't accept the good, the bad, and the ugly in ourselves, we can't truly be better. Even if we look good on the outside, we'll still be broken and unhappy on the inside. The substance hits me hard because I had struggled with body image for most of my life. I hated how I looked for so long, and it was only a few years ago that I realized I didn't need to hate myself to improve. Since then, I stopped feeling ashamed of my body, and loving myself actually inspires me to improve more than when I hated myself. This is why I love The Substance so much. It's a movie about self-acceptance, but the message isn't how you're already amazing, you don't need to change. It's all about balance and remembering what we like and don't like are all a part of who we are. Oftentimes, we actually need the not so good parts to improve, like how Sue was born from Elizabeth and sustained by her. Of course, besides the amazing story, The Substance is also a very impressive movie visually. As a horror fan, I love good practical special effects, and The Substance is loaded with them. I'm also a big fan of the bright colors and contrasts. It's always eerie when a horror film has vibrant but unsettling colors, and it works especially well for a film about showbiz. Demi Moore's performance is absolutely amazing, and so is Margaret Qualley's. As I mentioned before, it's amazing how I can see them as the same person despite them having different personalities and acting in opposite manners. That's basically my thoughts on The Substance. The story, the acting, the visuals, it's just an amazing movie all around. There are so many layers to The Substance, and I'm sure there are more meanings behind it other than the ones I mentioned. That's what a good movie does. It makes you think, and audiences can draw so many different themes and messages from it. I absolutely love it, and I regret not seeing it in theaters last year. Hope you guys like my review and nails. The Substance is such a visually impressive movie that I had so many ideas for nails. I ended up doing my favorite line, "You are one," the double yolk egg in the beginning, the two eyeballs in Elizabeth during the birth of Sue, the two clay balls from the Substance video, and Elizabeth's star on Walk of Fame. As always, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, comment, share, do what you want. Keep nailing it and respect the balance, people.